Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're going down a rabbit hole. We're going to be talking about tech that just vanished. You know, those inventions that promised to change the world and then poof, gone.
Yeah, it's like they were like almost too good to be true and then just disappeared. It makes you wonder what happened, you know?
Right. Like, was it really just a bust? Or was there something more going on? To get to the bottom of this, we're going to be looking at three cases today.
Okay.
First up, Stanley Meyer and his car. It supposedly ran on water.
A water-powered car, huh?
Then we've got Nikola Tesla. You've all heard of him, right? Genius inventor. But what about those missing blueprints? You know, the ones for wireless energy.
Tesla. Always a good story there.
And lastly, we're going to tackle a classic, the quest for perpetual motion. Can a machine really power itself forever?
The holy grail of energy, right?
So buckle up, folks, because we're about to dive deep into the world of lost tech. Did these inventions really just fizzle out, or were they maybe deliberately suppressed?
Yeah, there are some pretty wild theories out there.
Oh yeah, corporate greed, government cover-ups, maybe even a dash of scientific controversy.
Sounds like a good deep dive to me.
So let's start with Stanley Meyer. He claimed to have built a car that ran on water. Just imagine filling up your tank from your garden hose.
That would be pretty amazing, wouldn't it? No more gas stations.
He said he figured out how to split water into hydrogen and oxygen, use that as fuel. Like, it sounds like science fiction,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there were even reports that he had prototypes.
Hmm. Well, the idea of using water as fuel isn't, totally crazy. I mean, the science is there. The trick is how do you do it efficiently enough to power, a whole car?
Right, exactly. So here's where it gets interesting. 1998, Meyer dies.
Oh,
Suddenly, during a business meeting.
yeah.
Officially, a brain aneurysm.
Okay.
But there were rumors about the circumstances surrounding his death, I mean.
Ah, I see. Not so straightforward.
Yeah, and those rumors, they didn't exactly go away when all of his research, patents, prototypes, they all kind of vanished after he died.
So everything just disappeared. Patents, prototypes, all of it. That is strange. You think if you'd invented something that big, you'd want to, I don't know, protect it somehow.
Right, and that's what a lot of people were saying. Like, was this a conspiracy? Did the oil companies, did they have something to do with it? I mean, think about it. If Meyer's invention was real, it would have been a huge threat to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, talk about disrupting a whole industry. Big oil wouldn't have been happy.
Right. But, you know, we have to look at the other side of the coin too. Could it have all been a hoax? I mean, were the lawsuits, were those because his water-powered car, was it actually a scam? Some experts even said the science was just flawed.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to get caught up in the conspiracy theories, but sometimes the simplest explanation is the right one.
So, is it a tragic tale of a visionary inventor silenced? Or was it just a case of science not quite catching up with ambition? It's hard to say for sure.
It is, but that's what makes these stories so fascinating. It's all about like digging for the truth, sifting through the evidence and trying to figure out, what really happened.
Okay, well, let's move on for the water-powered car to a different kind of energy revolution. Let's talk about Nikola Tesla. Now, Tesla was a genius, ahead of his time, some might say. But even for him, the idea of wireless energy transmission, that was huge.
Yeah, no power lines, no cords, just energy beaming through the air. Definitely a game changer.
Imagine, right? Your phone just charging just
Yeah.
by being in your pocket. But after he died in 1943, a lot of his work, including those blueprints for wireless energy, they vanished.
Went missing just like that.
And it gets even weirder. Declassified FBI documents, they show that the FBI, they actually seized a bunch of Tesla's stuff after he died.
The FBI took his stuff. Seriously, why? What were they so interested in?
Right? Was it national security? I mean,
Yeah.
you could imagine how powerful a government would be if they could control wireless energy, right?
Yeah. Or were they like trying to keep this technology under wraps? Maybe it was too disruptive, too revolutionary for the world to handle at that point.
It's crazy to think, right? Like, how different would the world be today if Tesla's wireless energy had actually taken off?
Yeah, think about it. No more power grid, no more dependence on fossil fuels. It would have been a completely different world.
Yeah. But then there's a question, was it even possible? Could Tesla have actually achieved wireless energy transmission with the technology, back then? It's
Yeah.
hard to know for sure without those missing notes and blueprints.
I mean, who knows what secrets those documents held? Maybe Tesla was onto something truly groundbreaking, something that could have changed the course of history.
It's like a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
Hmm.
We may never know the full story of Tesla's wireless
Yeah.
energy, but even the fragments we have, they spark the imagination, right? It's like a glimpse into a world that could have been.
Yeah. And it reminds us that sometimes the most important inventions are the ones that, that never quite make it to the mainstream.
Well, speaking of inventions that seem to defy the laws of physics, let's move on to our final case for today. The eternal quest for perpetual motion.
Yeah, yes. The dream of limitless energy. A machine that powers itself forever. It's a concept that's captivated people, for centuries.
A machine that never runs out of power. I mean, it's the ultimate dream, right? It could power, everything, our homes, our cities, the whole world.
And yet, despite centuries of, experiments and claims, perpetual motion, it's still just a dream. Lots of inventors have come forward with designs, but they've all been debunked as hoaxes or just impossible based on what we know about, physics.
It's like this pattern, right? Big promise, then skepticism, and finally disappointment.
So what is it about perpetual motion? Is it really just scientifically impossible, or is there something more to the story?
Well, there are, the laws of thermodynamics. They govern how energy behaves.
Yeah.
And they kind of put a damper on the whole perpetual motion thing. They basically say that you can't create energy out of nothing. You can only transform it. And in every transformation, some energy is always lost, usually as heat.
So you're saying like it's like trying to run a car forever on fumes. You can't create energy from thin air.
Yeah, pretty much. The laws of physics, they're pretty stubborn.
But some people still believe, right? They believe that maybe, just maybe, someone actually cracked the code. But then those designs, they were suppressed, maybe by, I don't know, maybe by the people who control, the energy industry. Yeah, there are those conspiracy theories out there. The idea that, big oil or even governments, they wouldn't want a technology that could make energy free and abundant. It would threaten their power and control.
Right. It's a pretty compelling argument. I mean, who wouldn't want to keep a monopoly on something as valuable as energy?
Yeah. But again, it's important to separate, speculation from fact. We have to look at the evidence, consider all the possibilities.
It's almost like there's this hidden world, a world of potentially revolutionary tech that just gets buried.
Yeah.
And we're left wondering, what if?
Yeah, what if these inventions, what if they had succeeded? It makes you think about all the possibilities that might be, right under our noses, things we might not even be aware of.
It's almost like we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg,
Yeah.
What's really going on beneath the surface?
Right. And are we only getting like a carefully curated version of technological progress? It makes you think.
Yeah. Like we've talked about the idea of powerful interests, maybe trying to suppress disruptive tech, but what about the role of governments in all this? I mean, couldn't national security be a reason for keeping some inventions secret?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, imagine like wireless energy transmission. If they could control that, that's a huge advantage.
Right. They could power their military, their whole infrastructure, and no one else would have access to it. That's straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it is. But it also shows, that these disappearing technologies, they're not just about like cool gadgets. We're talking about potential shifts in power, like on a global scale.
Yeah. And then you have to think about, intellectual property. Maybe inventors are keeping their work secret, to protect it from being stolen or copied.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like a tech arms race in a way. Everyone's trying to like stay ahead.
So it's not just about whether an invention works or not. It's also about like timing. Is the world even ready for it?
Exactly. Like imagine if someone invented a self-driving car, I don't know, 100 years ago. It wouldn't have made any sense, right? No roads, no infrastructure for it.
Right. Or even the internet. I mean, it took a while for it to really take off.
Right. It's not just the tech itself. It's the whole context.
Okay, so we've looked at Stanley Meyer, Nikola Tesla, and the quest for perpetual motion. Each case is different. But is there a common thread here? Do you see a connection between them?
I do. I mean, I think the biggest connection is the potential they all had to be disruptive. If any of these technologies, if they had become mainstream, it would changed everything.
Yeah. Meyer's water-powered car, it could have, ended our dependence on oil.
Right.
Tesla's wireless energy, it could have revolutionized like how we power our lives. And perpetual motion, well, that's just the holy grail of energy independence.
Exactly. They all had the potential to challenge the way things are. And maybe that's why they face so much resistance.
So are you saying that anything that's truly disruptive, anything that threatens the status quo is doomed to be suppressed?
I wouldn't say doomed necessarily, but it definitely, faces an uphill battle. There are always going to be forces that benefit from keeping things, the way they are.
It's kind of a pessimistic view, isn't it?
Maybe. Or maybe it's just realistic. I mean, we have to be aware of the forces at play, but that doesn't mean we should give up hope.
So what are we supposed to do? I mean, are we just supposed to be cynical and assume that every amazing invention is going to get buried?
No, I don't think so. I think it's about like finding a balance, right, between being skeptical, questioning what we're told, but also being open to new possibilities.
So like critical thinking is key.
Exactly. Don't just accept things at face value. Do your own research. Ask questions. Be willing to, challenge the accepted narrative.
Don't just be a passive consumer of technology.
Yeah.
Be an active participant.
Exactly. And remember, progress, it's not just about, lone geniuses working in isolation. It's a collective effort.
We all have a role to play.
Right. By engaging with new ideas, supporting innovation, we can help shape the future.
So we're all part of this grand experiment, this quest to understand the world and to change it with technology.
In a way, yeah. And the more we understand about, how innovation works, the better equipped we'll be to navigate the future.
Okay, that's inspiring. But before we get too carried away with all this big picture stuff,
Yeah.
let's bring it back down to earth a little bit. We've been talking about these almost mythical inventions, but what about the tech we use every day, the stuff that's become like so normal to us that we don't even think about it anymore? There's got to be some interesting stories hidden there too, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, we get so focused on like the what ifs and the could have beens, we forget to look at the tech that's actually shaped our world and how it got here.
Yeah. Like the smartphone. It's
Yeah.
it's everywhere now, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like we don't even see it anymore. But the story of how it came to be, I mean, that's fascinating.
It is. It's full of like competition and big decisions that could have, sent us down a totally different path.
Right. Like touch screens and app stores. I mean, those were always a given, were they?
Yeah. No, not at all. There were like different operating systems, different companies all fighting to be the top dog.
It's kind of a reminder that the tech we have now, it wasn't inevitable. It's the result of choices and maybe even a bit of luck.
Yeah, definitely. Which kind of brings us back to the big question we've been wrestling with, right? Are we really in control of technology, or are we just kind of along for the ride?
That's a good question. And a little scary, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
on one hand, we have the power to create amazing things, but on the other hand, it feels like technology has a mind of its own sometimes, you know?
Yeah, it's this constant tension. We need to be aware of the downsides, the unintended consequences, but we can't let that stifle, innovation. We got to keep pushing forward.
So it sounds like the key takeaway here is that the technology, it's not good or bad. It's a tool, and it's up to us to use it wisely.
Exactly. We have a responsibility to think about, the ethical implications, to ask ourselves what kind of world are we building with this technology?
Okay, so we've explored a lot today. Water-powered cars, wireless energy, perpetual motion, even the tech we use every day.
Okay.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one last thought.
All right, hit me with it.
Well, we've talked a lot about, the forces that might be holding back progress. But what about the opposite? What about the things that are pushing us forward? What are the dreams, the motivations that are driving inventors to keep innovating?
That's a great question. It's a reminder that technology isn't all, doom and gloom. It's also about like human ingenuity, the desire to make things better.
Yeah. And maybe if we can understand those driving forces, if we can nurture that spark of innovation, then we can make sure that technology is used for good, that it's used to build a better world.
Yeah, a world where technology benefits everyone, not just, a select few.
Exactly. So to all our listeners out there, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep believing in the power of technology to change the world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.